Hey there, tech fans. Rick here again with a full review of the Lexivon Butane Mini Torch Kit. This single product is really like 5 different products in one because it's so versatile you can do a ton of different things with it. For example, you can use the kit to solder a copper pipe. You can also use it to solder electronics. It acts like a heat gun where you can shrink wrap tubing. If you like to 3D print things, you can use it to clean up your models. You can use it to start a fire in the backyard if you've got a campfire going. You can even use it when you're cooking. All the attachments inside kind of turn this mini torch into the Swiss Army knife of heat that you can use for a lot of different things. Now, before I get too deep into what the product provides, I always like to start with a quick unboxing. So I'll do that first, and then I'll talk about some of the specifications. But more importantly, I want you to understand what's different about this particular mini torch when you compare it to other products you may be considering. But let's get started with the unboxing. So when you first pop open the box, you'll find this beautiful case, and I'll show you what's inside in a minute. You get a warranty card that lets you know you've got a quality product with information on how to get a hold of the company if you have questions, and you'll get a full user's manual that explains how to use the torch safely and how all the accessories work to sort of turn this into a lot of different tools. Now, the case is really nice. I like a case like this where I can keep everything in one place. It also protects the torch. So I'll snap it open, and inside you can see the torch. There's a stand. There's a little solder pad right there. There's a whole lot of different tips on it that you can attach to the unit and turn it into different things. They even include wrenches that'll tighten it up. So again, the other day I was downstairs, I had a pipe I was extending outside to put another bib out for an outside hose. I used this to solder that copper pipe. That same day, I had to do some work on an electronics printed circuit board, and I used it again to solder electronics. So that would have been 2 different tools right there. I had to shrink wrap some tubing about a week ago. I could use this to do that. And again, I love 3D printing things, but every time you print something, when you pull it off the plate, there might be a little hair sticking up from where that glue moved back and forth across it. You can use this to clean up your models. So all those things in the span of 3 or 4 days with a single product. Now, it's a 12-piece kit. I'm sure you can get the torch on its own, but I like having a kit like this because I promise you, when you get it, you're going to use it for one thing. And then you're going to think, gee, I could use that same thing to solder. I could use that to, if I'm a cook, I can get in there in the kitchen and do things in the kitchen with it. Well, all those components are inside the unit. And it comes with tips in here that you can use for, if you're a 3D printer, again, and you want to put an assembly in there, like an anchor into the 3D print, you can heat it up with this and push it into the plastic. There's a hot knife attachment right here. If you do any kind of woodworking or plastic work, you can use that hot knife to do that. It's got a soldering tip on it. It has a really nice little piece right here that's perfect for heat shrinking because you put this on the front of the unit, it sort of redirects that hot air, that heat from the torch back over that 3D space to actually shrink wrap things. So I just think they've done a wonderful job with it. Now, if you stay tuned next, what I'll do is take a closer look at the kit, but more importantly, I want to show you first why this one is so different than a lot of other kits on the market. So the torch itself, for starters, it's an equivalent of about 125 watts, so it's incredibly powerful. It takes a butane fuel on the bottom. You can fill it just like you would any butane device. But the thing I love about it most is the safety aspects of it, because you're going to keep it in the kit, but if you drop this on a concrete floor, you throw it in your toolbox, you want to make sure that this chamber doesn't get pierced, because number one, you're going to lose all the butane fuel, but that presents like a fire hazard. So if you look closely, there's a nice rubber grip on it so you can hold on to it, but the actual tank itself is aluminum all the way to the top. Now, some of these have a small portion of aluminum at the bottom, the rest of it's hard plastic. With this one, it's aluminum all the way through, so I've got a really secure tank for the butane to stay inside. They've also built in a really cool safety mechanism here. So I can't push the starter button right there to start the flame. I actually have to push this forward. It's a little safety, and it clicks all the way open. And now I'm ready to go. So if I push this, the torch will light. When I let go, watch what happens. It snaps back across. So I can't push it and then push it again. So if you've got kids in the house, an incredibly safe product. And then on this side, there's actually an adjustment that'll hold it on. So if you're working on, I don't know, some leather goods, you're working on maybe cleaning up a model, you can put it in the base like that, turn it on, and work very carefully. Now here's the thing, never face it towards you. I mean, that would be foolish, but you might think, oh, it'll be easier to see the flame. Never do that, and don't put it off to the side because it's sometimes hard to tell where the flame is. Whenever you're working with it in the stand, always make sure it's facing away from you, and that way you have complete control because you know where your fingers are and you know where the torch is. I always recommend wearing gloves as well because, again, again, everything gets hot here. It's a wonderful product that heats up instantly, but you want to keep your fingers safe. So put some gloves on, have it face away from you. And then finally, there's an adjustment right here for the flame distance that'll actually put a small flame out if you're doing heat shrinking, or a really big flame if you're trying to solder some pipes. The unit itself it has 12 pieces in here, 2,400 degrees. That's really, really hot. And it can run about 2 hours in a full tank. And you can fill it with anybody's butane, again, by simply attaching the butane right in the bottom there. And the way you'll fill it is you'll stick it in, and you'll see a little bit of mist coming out. When the tank is full, you'll see a lot of air being ejected, and you know you've got it completely full. But man, I'll tell you, I haven't had a small butane torch like this in a lot of years. The last one I had was big, it was bulky, kind of clunky. This one looks like something out of a James Bond movie. I mean, it's really built to do the job and look great. A little lanyard on the top here where you can hang it if you want on your pegboard, or if you're heading out in the field. But I just think it's a wonderful product. Now, if you stay tuned next, again, I'll take a closer look at the actual torch and give you a good feel for what those different adjustments I just mentioned do. And that's pretty much it. So I'll come back at the end and point out a few things that you can use to compare it to others you may be considering. But I'm telling you, as a kit, Lexivon has done a phenomenal job in building this product. Not only is the product cool, but the case is great, and the 12 accessories are they're incredibly important because, again, it expands the versatility of what the torch can do. Anyway, stay tuned. We'll take a closer look, and then I'll come back and point out a few things that you can use to compare this to other mini torches you may be considering. Now I'll take a closer look at the actual kit. So let me open it up here. First thing you'll notice is that everything has a place. So the torch can fit here. All the bits can fit here. You've got the stand, and again, the soldering pad. Now what's interesting is the torch itself really is great on its own. So if you turn this on, you'll have a nice flame coming out the end that you can use for soldering things like copper pipes, or if you need to sort of heat something up. But you can actually install this right here. It's called the catalyst on the front, and then all of these screw into the catalyst. But let me talk a little bit more about the torch. I'd mentioned it's got an aluminum canister on the bottom, which I like an awful lot. There's a lock right here to lock it in the on position. Here's that safety I was talking about before. And you notice you can't actually turn it on by moving it across like that. You actually have to push forward very deliberately and then move it over. Then it locks in that position. Once it's in that position, you can now start the torch by pushing this in. Listen closely, you hear a click, and you'll see the torch is on. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the torch is lit. When you turn it off, look what happened. It slipped back to that safety position, so I can't push it again. I like that an awful lot. Now the lock right here holds the torch on, and that can be a little bit dangerous, so you want to make sure that if you're going to lock it in the on position, you have it in the stand so it's not going to move around, and you have it facing away from you. Never face it towards you. But to use that, you'll put it in the on position, you'll start the torch, and then you can push this over to lock it, and that'll keep the torch on. To unlock it, you pull it this direction, it shuts everything off, and this moves back to the safe position. Finally, on the other side, you've got an adjustment for the flame. Very low right now just for demonstration purposes, but if you need it a lot hotter, you can crank it all the way up over there. All right, let me talk a little bit about the tips. So to start with, I love this base because it allows me to put the torch in it, and then I've got a nice working base where it's not going to move around on me. It's not going to tip over. So that's great if you're working on some maybe shrink wrap tubing, or you've got to clean something up. The tips themselves all start with this catalyst. And this one goes inside this sleeve. Now I'm letting this cool down for a second because it's hot because I just had it lit. But essentially this slides inside the sleeve, and then that heat hits the back of it and heats this off, and it transfers that heat to whatever tip you have in there. So you've got a concentrator tip here. You've got 3 soldering tips right there. You have a hot knife right there. And finally you have this one, which I like a lot, for shrink wrapping tubing, and that actually slides around the end like this, and that keeps the flame curling back on the tubing. So it sort of keeps everything hot. And then you've got 2 wrenches right there. One will attach here so you can hold this still. The other one is for the smaller tips. Let me see if this is cooled down. Yeah, it's cool enough. All right, so to take this off, you'll finger tighten this, pull it off like that. This slides off the torch, and then you can put the catalyst inside of it by dropping it in like that. See how it extends out the end? Then put this back on, tighten it up. And then once it's finger tight, that's all you have to do. Now you've got a threaded end right here that you can use with any of these tips. So let's say, for example, I wanted to do a little bit of electronic soldering with this tip. I'd basically screw it into the end like that. And that's where the 2 wrenches come in. You've got one wrench that can hold the catalyst, and the other wrench can tighten the tip. It's important that these are tight because, again, you've got thermal conductivity to heat right here. You're essentially heating up the catalyst, and it has to transfer the heat to the tip. So if this is loose, you're not going to get as much heat transfer there. So you want to make sure, don't crank it down so much that you're really wrestling with it, but tighten it enough where you get that heat transfer between them. And that's the beauty of this, is that, again, you've got a soldering tip here, hot knife, another soldering tip here and here, and a concentrator right there, as well as this unit you can use for the shrink wrapping of the tubing. So what you're getting, as I said in the beginning, is you're getting a tool that you can use to do so many different things with in a single tool. It just really knocks down the clutter in your toolkit and gives you a great tool that you can use for almost any job you have around the house. I hope that closer look was helpful. Now here are a few really important things to keep in mind when you're comparing the Lexivon Butane Mini Torch Kit with other products you may be considering. And I want to use the word kit because I like having a kit that allows me to expand the use of the mini torch. There's a lot of butane mini torches on the market. Some of them come with a little bag you can throw things in. Some come with accessories, some don't. But I like having a kit because, number one, it keeps everything organized. Everything's in the case. When I use it, I take out what I need. When I'm done, I put everything back. There's little cutouts in here for all the attachments. The challenge is when you buy the torch from somebody else and then have to go searching for accessories, you may not get everything you need and it may not fit perfectly and you've got no place to put it. And if you've got a kit that's got a bag where you throw everything in the bag, I promise you stuff's going to get lost. Here, when I finish a job, I look at the kit, and if there's an empty slot like right there, I go, okay, where's that tip? I must have put it down someplace. Sure enough, here it is, put it back in the kit. So I like the kit concept. I really like the fact that they've thought about safety. A lot of the kits on the market, or a lot of the butane torches in the market, they're a little bit, I don't want to say dangerous, but they just don't think through the safety aspects of it because, again, if I've got this in a bag and it hits here and starts up, I could burn something in the bag. But more importantly, if you have young children in the house, this is something they're going to want to play with. I mean, it looks like a ray gun, so I could see a kid picking it up, pushing this button and starting the torch. Now, of course, you're going to keep it out of the reach of children, but they have a way of finding things. So with this one, there's a complicated process. You actually have to slide this all the way over. You can't push it straight across. You got to push in and slide over to get it in the safe position, the start position, I should say. And then you can start it up. Now, when you let go of it, it resets. You don't even have to remember to put it back in that stop position. So they've really thought through protecting you and your family from any kind of danger. I love this grip. I mean, the grip on it, when you've got a torch in your hand and you're soldering, you don't want to have anything slippery because if you're soldering, you're probably getting a little bit warmer and you're sweating and you got slippery hands. If it was just the tank, I think it would slip out of my hand, but I love this grip on it. And it's also an aluminum tank. I'd mentioned that earlier on. The aluminum tank is important because you've got highly flammable butane gas inside here, and you don't want to have a plastic tank. Even if the bottom of it is aluminum, the rest of it's plastic, I just always worry over time it's going to wear itself out. You're going to have a seal problem, and having an aluminum tank just gives me that peace of mind of knowing I've got a safe unit in my hands. I love the fact that I can easily change out the tip. It's finger tight. I slide off the collar like this, and I could add any accessory I want to it, slide it back in, and then use it again. And like I'd mentioned, I've used it for a bunch of different jobs around the house. I soldered a copper pipe with it. I've soldered some electronics with it. I had to do some heat shrink tubing last week. I used it for that. I've even used it on my 3D printing projects to eliminate a lot of the hairs and countersink a couple of anchors into 3D products. So for me, I bought it for one reason, to solder pipes, because I don't want to carry around a big tank and all the rest of it. But I'm telling you, I really, really love this product. So hopefully those things make sense to you. I think it's a great product, and if you're looking for a mini butane tank, a butane kit, this may be the one to go with. Mini torches have become incredibly popular in recent years, and I think Lexivon has done a great job with this particular product. So I hope you found the value in this review. I love talking about this type of technology in general, so thanks an awful lot for watching, and until next time, as always, stay nerdy.